Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical. Let's go to Africa. Moscow plan of creating a corridor of influence across the continent, the African transversal, from the Sudanese Red Sea coast to the Congolese Atlantic via the Central African Republic. This is Andrew Koribiko. Sudan's opposition observes the first day of the strike. Talks between the ruling Transitional Military Council and the Declaration of Freedom and Change Forces Alliance are at a standstill despite weeks of negotiations over whether civilians or the military will have the upper hand after the ousting of longtime President Omar al-Bashir. Hamdan Dagalo said on Monday that the council was ready to hand over power swiftly, but the opposition was not being serious about sharing power and wanted to confine the military to a ceremonial role or back to their barracks. That's where they belong. And as I said in January, what we're watching across this continent is a tipping point moment, and Khartoum is a tipping point moment. South African all shares up 3.21% this year. The rand fell more than 2% on Tuesday as Deputy President David Mabuza was sworn in as a lawmaker. The market requires evidence of strong leadership to quell fears of policy paralysis, which would require that members appointed to the executive are free of controversy. The deadline in which to appoint a cabinet is fast approaching, and the onus lies firmly on the president to free the market of its anxiety to stem the tide of rand losses. Egyptian pound, this is at 16.8294, the best performing currency in the world this year, for reasons that we've already spoken about. Egyptian EGX 30, that's up 7.61% year to date. This is from Paul Wallace. Here are Nigeria's key assumptions for this year's 25 billion federal budget, which President Buhari signed off. But more interesting is this article in Bloomberg, Buhari's first 4 years in 4 charts. Have a look at this. The economy, of course, contracted in 2016 for the first time in 25 years. It's expanded since then, but at a meager level. And in fact, everyone's getting worse off because the rate of population increase is outpacing the GDP increase. Nigerian stock market delivered one of the worst returns globally. I think people have lost half their money during his period. The Naira, on top of that, has lost 45% of its value against the dollar. So there you go. I called it Baba Go Slow. And I was saying it was the second biggest economy in Africa in 2018, using the market exchange rate of 362. Unemployment has risen from 8.2% to 23.1% during Buhari's watch. And I said you've got to contrast him with al-Sisi, and I disagree with al-Sisi, particularly on his incarceration strategy, but he made bold moves when it came to the economy. He devalued its currency, took a brutal punch in the solar plexus, but is now reaping the dividend from its bolder economic policy. Nigeria is still muddling along with its voodoo-level FX economics. Since Buhari came to power in May 2015, Nigeria's stock market has fallen more than any other in the world, dropping 50% in dollar terms. It staged a small recovery with this introduction via listing of MTN. Nigerian all-share minus 0.39% year-to-date. Ghana Stock Exchange minus 2.16% year-to-date. President of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, is seen here inspecting a guard of honor in Zimbabwe. He's on a 2-day visit to the South African nation, where US sanctions against some members of ZANU-PF remain. Magufuli spoke after Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa told reporters that the two countries would place emphasis on economic and trade cooperation in the future. Very interesting interview by the central bank governor, Dr. Patrick Njoroge, with Reuters. He says Kenya needs to begin reorganizing debt and the room for borrowing has shrunk. Kenya's headroom for new borrowing has shrunk since it tapped the Eurobond market this month. It is time for the country to begin reorganizing its debt. His term is due to end at the end of next month, told reporters that the $2.1 billion Eurobond Kachumbari bond in mid-May allowed Kenya to refinance some of its existing loans and hopefully give us more room to expand the economy and increase export capacity. As advisors of the government, our point is that this is the time to begin working on reorganizing our debt, not in a frantic way, so doing it in the Eliud Kipchoge way, which is that it's a marathon run and you have to do it in a steady way. It is important to say that the moment for dealing with debt reorganization, looking at debt and itself reorganizing it, that moment has come. We're not talking drought like we had in 2017. He downgraded 2019 GDP because the rains have arrived, and the question now is, are they adequate? He said, agreeing with what I've been saying, the US-China trade dispute has escalated to a full-scale war. Kachumbari bond was something I wrote on the 20th of May, and I've previously said, to his point about the weather and the rain, a sub-Saharan African economist has also got to be an accomplished meteorologist because rains have an outsized effect on GDP. Nairobi all shares back up 8.08% here today. That's all about Safaricom, which surged 5.78% yesterday. Market, I think, is waking up to that M-Pesa Pan-African opportunity. 6th of May, after their full year results, I wrote a piece about how M-Pesa is the jewel in Safaricom's crown. Yesterday, I interviewed Ali Kassim on The Smart Investor. We were talking about the digital platform economy. That interview will be uploaded on YouTube by Metropole very soon. And you know the platform economy, I've described it before. It's Gladwellian. It's a tipping point, the magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, spreads like wildfire. And I also said the new high-tech millennial crypto avocado economy exhibits viral, wildfire, and exponential and non-linear characteristics. That was the subject of our discussion. Catch us on Metropole at 8 p.m. Otherwise, see you next time. Thank you.